I'm Jack Wilson, 32 years old, and until last year I was just a high school English teacher living paycheck to paycheck. My whole life I watched my parents favor my brother Ryan, but nothing prepared me for their 40th anniversary party. They gave him a $500,000 vacation house while I got a $5 lottery ticket tucked in a card. The universe has a sense of humor, though that ticket won me $134 million. What happened next taught my family a lesson they'll never forget. Before I tell you how I handled sudden wealth and family who suddenly cared, drop a comment, letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button, and subscribe to see more stories about life's unexpected turns. Growing up in the shadow of my older brother Ryan was practically my full-time job. 3 years older, 3 inches taller, and seemingly 3 times more talented at everything he tried. While I struggled through Little League, Ryan was the star pitcher getting scouted by high schools across the county. When I brought home B+ report cards, my parents would nod and immediately ask Ryan about his latest A. His trophy shelf required reinforcement twice. Mine held 3 participation medals and a second-place ribbon from a 5th-grade spelling bee. Our childhood home in suburban Chicago was technically equal. We both had similar-sized bedrooms, but the atmosphere wasn't. Family photos featured Ryan's winning touchdown or graduation speech, while I was often the blurry figure in the background. My parents, Robert and Martha Wilson, never explicitly said they preferred Ryan, but actions speak volumes. "Jack, why can't you apply yourself like your brother?" became my mom's catchphrase throughout high school. Dad was more subtle, expressing disappointment through sighs when I chose to join drama club instead of football. College widened the gap further. Ryan attended Northwestern on a partial scholarship, majoring in business and economics. I went to a state school and discovered my passion for literature and teaching. The day I announced my decision to become a high school English teacher, my father looked physically pained. "Teachers don't make any money, Jack," he said, while my mother added, "It's stable, at least I suppose." Meanwhile, Ryan entered real estate right after college and hit the ground running. Within 5 years, he was selling luxury properties across Chicago's North Shore, driving a BMW, and had married Catherine, a marketing executive from a wealthy family. They bought a 5-bedroom house in an exclusive neighborhood, while I rented a 1-bedroom apartment and drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic. Family gatherings became increasingly uncomfortable as the years passed. Last Christmas highlighted the disparity perfectly. Ryan and Catherine received a week-long Caribbean cruise package from my parents. I got a $50 gift card to Barnes & Noble and a pack of dress socks. When I opened my gift, Mom quickly said, "We know how much you love books," as if that explained everything. Birthday celebrations showed the same pattern. Ryan's 35th birthday last year featured a surprise party at an upscale steakhouse with 50 guests. My 32nd birthday, the month before, was acknowledged with a text message and a promise to celebrate properly soon that never materialized. Through it all, I tried to rationalize their behavior. Ryan and Catherine might have children soon, so my parents were investing in their future grandchildren's lives. Ryan worked in the same industry as Dad had before retirement, giving them more to talk about. Ryan lived closer to them by 15 minutes. I created a mental catalog of excuses for their favoritism because the alternative, accepting they simply valued him more, was too painful. The one person who saw through it all was my girlfriend, Ellie Cooper. We met 3 years ago when she came to the school as a substitute nurse, and had been together ever since. "Your parents are playing favorites, and it's not right," Ellie would say, after particularly rough family dinners. "You're accomplished and kind and shouldn't have to compete for their attention." My best friend Trevor Martinez, who I'd known since college, was equally blunt. "Your parents are living vicariously through Ryan's conventional success," he told me over beers one night. "They don't understand that molding young minds is more valuable than selling McMansions to rich people." I valued their perspectives, but still held on to hope that my parents would eventually see my worth. Teaching high school English might not make me rich, but watching students discover their voices through literature gave me purpose. The letters I received from former students who'd gone on to become writers or professors meant more than any commission check. Still, I couldn't deny the sting when my parents would introduce Ryan as our son, the successful real estate agent, while I was simply our younger son Jack. The pattern was set, and I had reluctantly accepted my place in the family hierarchy. Little did I know that a single piece of paper would soon upend everything. My parents' 40th wedding anniversary arrived last September, and Ryan took charge of organizing a celebration at the Peninsula, one of Chicago's most exclusive hotels. Despite being the less responsible son, I contributed significantly to the planning, creating a video montage of their marriage, coordinating with relatives flying in from across the country, and selecting the cake from their favorite bakery. Ryan handled the venue booking and payment, making sure everyone knew about his financial contribution. The evening of the celebration, I arrived early to ensure everything was perfect. The ballroom gleamed with white and silver decorations, tables adorned with photographs of my parents through the years. I noticed that photos, including Ryan, outnumbered those with me about 3-1, but pushed the observation aside. This night was about them, not my insecurities. Guests arrived: aunts, uncles, cousins, and my parents' friends from their country club and neighborhood. Many greeted Ryan with enthusiastic hugs before noticing me with surprise. "Jack, we didn't know you'd be here, my mother's friend," Barbara exclaimed, despite the fact that I had personally called her to confirm attendance. Throughout, dinner conversation flowed around real estate prices, golf handicaps, and European vacations, worlds I had little part in. When I mentioned a breakthrough with a struggling student who had finally connected with Shakespeare, my Aunt Linda patted my hand and said, "That's nice, dear," before turning to ask Ryan about property investments. After the main course, Ryan clinked his glass and stood for the big moment we had planned. "Mom and Dad," he began, voice thick with practiced emotion, "40 years of marriage is a remarkable achievement. Catherine and I are in awe of your commitment and love." He continued with a speech about family legacy before reaching the planned surprise. "To honor your journey together, Catherine and I," he paused dramatically, making sure everyone noted the inclusion of his wife's name to emphasize their unified financial power, "to want to present you with something special." Ryan's assistant, yes, he brought his assistant to a family function, handed him a large gift box. My parents opened it to find a model of a lakeside cabin with a red bow on top. Underneath lay a folder containing property deeds. "We know how much you've always wanted a place on Lake Geneva," Ryan announced to gasps from the audience. "So we bought you this 3-bedroom vacation home as a thank you for everything you've done for us." The room erupted in applause. My mother burst into tears while my father hugged Ryan with unusual emotional openness. Guests swarmed forward to congratulate everyone. I stood at the edge, genuinely happy for my parents, but feeling the familiar pang of inadequacy. The property had to be worth at least $500,000, more than I would earn in several years of teaching. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. My mother, still wiping away tears, turned to me. "And Jack has something for you too," she announced to the room, her voice clearly conveying lowered expectations. All eyes turned to me as I stepped forward with my considerably smaller gift bag. Inside was a handcrafted photo album I'd spent months creating, containing restored images from their early marriage that I'd tracked down from relatives and friends. Beneath it was a card containing a scratch-off lottery ticket that I'd added as a last-minute impulse buy while getting the card. "This is from me," I said, trying to infuse my voice with confidence. "I collected photos from your first 10 years together that you might not have seen in decades." My mother paged through it quickly, while my father nodded politely. "This is very thoughtful, Jack," she said, but her tone suggested she was underwhelmed. Then she opened the card, and the lottery ticket fell out. "And a chance to win big," my father said, with a chuckle that several guests echoed. The contrast between Ryan's gift and mine hung painfully in the air. "Well, you never know," I said lamely. "Could be worth millions." "Good old Jack," said my Uncle Phil, patting my shoulder. "Always the dreamer." The party moved on to cake and dancing, but I felt the sting of whispered comparisons. Ryan always was the practical one. I overheard my Aunt Susan tell another relative, "Jack's still figuring things out, I guess." Ryan approached me at the bar, champagne in hand. "Nice album, bro," he said. "Very you." "Thanks," I replied, unable to muster enthusiasm. "The house is incredible. They'll love it." Let me know if you ever want to use it too, he offered magnanimously. Family vacation or something. Before I could respond, our mother called him away to meet some friends, leaving me alone again. I texted Ellie, who couldn't attend due to a night shift at the hospital. How bad is it? She replied. Ryan gave them a vacation house. I gave them a photo album and a lottery ticket. I'm so sorry, Jack. Their loss for not appreciating your thoughtfulness. Want me to come over after my shift? I declined, knowing she'd be exhausted, and made my excuses to leave the party early. No one seemed particularly disappointed by my departure. Driving home to my apartment, I felt a complex mix of emotions: love for my parents, hurt at their obvious favoritism, and a gnawing question about whether I would ever measure up in their eyes. The lottery ticket sat forgotten in my jacket pocket, seemingly worthless but destined to change everything. The morning after the anniversary party, I woke up feeling emotionally drained, calling in sick to work, something I rarely did. I spent the morning in a fog of self-pity and Netflix. Around noon, while making coffee, I emptied my jacket pockets and rediscovered the leftover lottery tickets I'd purchased when buying the one for my parents. With nothing better to do, I opened my laptop to check the previous night's drawing numbers. Sipping coffee, I casually compared the first ticket against the winning combination. No match. I grabbed the second ticket, expecting the same result. The first number matched, then the second. By the third matching number, I sat up straighter. Fourth, fifth, and the special ball all matched. I stared at the screen, then back at the ticket, convinced I was misreading something. According to the website, there was one winning ticket for the $134 million jackpot sold in Illinois. I checked the numbers again, my hands beginning to shake. Then I checked the date of the drawing and my ticket purchase date. Everything aligned. This can't be real, I said aloud to my empty apartment. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the ticket, then used the lottery app to scan the barcode. The confirmation message flashed: "Congratulations, big winner. Contact Illinois Lottery Office." I sat down hard on my kitchen floor, ticket clutched in my trembling hand. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same type of lottery ticket that had embarrassed me in front of my entire family last night was now worth more than any lake house. After 30 minutes of alternating between pacing and sitting in stunned silence, I finally called Ellie. "I need you to come over. Now." "It's important," I said, my voice unrecognizable even to myself. "Jack, are you okay? I just woke up after my night shift," she responded, instantly alert despite her exhaustion. "I'm fine. Better than fine. Just please come." When Ellie arrived 45 minutes later, I wordlessly handed her the ticket and showed her the winning numbers on my laptop. She looked back and forth between them several times before comprehension dawned. "Holy shit," she whispered. "Jack, is this real?" "I think so," I replied. "I've checked it 20 different ways." We spent the next hour researching what to do next. The Illinois Lottery website advised winners to sign the back of their ticket immediately, which I did with a hand still not entirely steady. Next came instructions to contact the lottery office to schedule a claim appointment. "Don't tell anyone yet," Ellie advised as I reached for my phone. "Not until you speak with professionals." She was right. News articles about lottery winners were filled with cautionary tales of people who announced their winnings prematurely, only to be hounded by distant relatives, scammers, and financial predators. That afternoon, I made 2 calls. The first was to the Illinois Lottery Commission, which confirmed I needed to come in person to their headquarters with ID and the original ticket. The second was to a financial advisor Ellie's father had recommended years ago when she received a small inheritance. The advisor, James Kendrick, agreed to meet me the following morning after I emphasized the urgency without specifying details. That night, Ellie stayed over both of us, barely sleeping as we whispered about possibilities until dawn. The next day brought a whirlwind of activity. James was professionally stoic when I revealed the winning ticket, though a slight widening of his eyes betrayed his surprise. "This changes everything in your financial life," he stated plainly. "Before you claim the prize, we need to discuss several things." Over the next 3 hours, he outlined critical decisions I needed to make. The first was whether to take the lump sum or annuity payments. The lump sum would be significantly less than the advertised $134 million, about $82.3 million before taxes, while the annuity would pay the full amount over 30 years. After federal and state taxes, a lump sum would leave you with approximately $49 million, James explained. Annual payments would give you more in total but spread over decades. We discussed the pros and cons of each option, considering investment opportunities, inflation, and my personal plans. Eventually, I decided on the lump sum, preferring to have control over the entire amount immediately. Next came a crash course in wealth management, trusts, investment strategies, asset protection, and philanthropy. By lunch, my head was spinning with new terminology and concepts. You should consider establishing anonymity if possible, James advised. Illinois is unfortunately not a state that allows lottery winners to remain anonymous by default, but we can create a trust or entity to provide some protection. After the meeting, I met with a lawyer James recommended who specialized in sudden wealth. She began drafting necessary documents while I scheduled my appointment with the Lottery Commission for the following week. That evening, Ellie and I sat on my balcony, the magnitude of the change still sinking in. "Are you going to tell your family?" she asked, the question I'd been avoiding all day. "Eventually," I replied, "but not yet. I need time to process this myself first." "They're going to be shocked," she said with a small smile, "especially after they gave me that pitying look when I gave them a lottery ticket as part of their gift." Yeah. The irony of the situation hit me anew. You know what's crazy? If they had scratched their ticket during the party instead of dismissing it, they might have won instead of me. I bought them from the same roll at the convenience store. That night I called Trevor, swearing him to secrecy before sharing my news. "Dude" was all he could say for several moments. "Dude." "I know. So what are you going to do about your family?" he asked after recovering from the shock. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "Part of me wants to show up to Sunday dinner in a Lamborghini just to see their faces. Another part wants to never tell them at all." "Take your time figuring it out," Trevor advised. "This is life-changing money. Don't make decisions based on emotion." As I lay in bed that night, lottery tickets secured in a fireproof safe I'd purchased that afternoon, I couldn't help reflecting on how differently my parents might have treated me if I'd been the financially successful son all along. The thought left a bitter taste in my mouth, but also sparked a determination to use this unexpected fortune wisely, both financially and emotionally. The week following my discovery passed in a blur of appointments and planning. I took a leave of absence from school, citing a family emergency that wasn't entirely untrue. My principal was understanding, and my students were left in the capable hands of a long-term substitute. After confirming my win at the lottery headquarters, a surreal experience involving security escorts and multiple verifications, I assembled a team of professionals to help navigate my new reality. Besides James, the financial advisor, I hired Patricia, an estate attorney, Michael, a tax specialist, and somewhat unexpectedly, Dr. Landry, a psychologist who specialized in significant life transitions. "Sudden wealth syndrome is real," Dr. Landry explained during our first session. "Many lottery winners experience anxiety, guilt, paranoia, and identity crises. Some even end up worse off than before." "I'm already feeling it," I admitted. "Yesterday I spent 20 minutes staring at toothpaste in the store, suddenly questioning if I should be buying some luxury brand instead of my usual one." We established weekly sessions to work through the psychological aspects of my windfall, particularly regarding my family dynamics. Dr. Landry helped me see that my newfound wealth couldn't heal old wounds, only honest communication and boundary setting could do that. Meanwhile, James and his team created a comprehensive financial plan. We established a revocable living trust to hold my assets, investment portfolios diversified across various sectors, and a charitable foundation to manage philanthropic giving. Wealth preservation is as important as wealth growth, James emphasized during our strategy sessions. Our goal is ensuring you never have to worry about money again while allowing you to make a positive impact. I decided to allocate my winnings roughly into thirds: 1/3 for secure investments to generate reliable income, 1/3 for higher risk investments with growth potential, and 1/3 for personal use and charitable giving. My personal priorities were surprisingly modest. After years of financial stress, I mainly wanted security and freedom. I planned to buy a comfortable but not ostentatious house, establish college funds for my future children, and create a foundation supporting literacy and education programs. As for my teaching career, I decided against quitting. Teaching gives me purpose, I explained to Ellie during one of our nightly discussions about the future. Money can't replace that feeling when a student finally connects with literature. Instead, I would return to teaching, but create a separate foundation to support underfunded school programs and teacher resources. The foundation would operate independently from my personal identity as much as possible. Throughout this planning phase, I maintained radio silence with my family. My parents called twice, leaving voicemails expressing concern about my absence from Sunday dinner. Ryan texted once, asking if I was still sulking about the anniversary party. I responded with vague explanations about being busy with work buying time until I felt ready for the inevitable confrontation. Ellie supported my cautious approach but worried about the secrecy. I understand needing time, she said one evening as we reviewed house listings online. But the longer you wait, the more dramatic it becomes. Trevor was more direct during our weekly basketball game, now played at a private court I'd rented for privacy. You need to rip off the Band-Aid, he advised, as we took a water break. But do it your way, on your terms. That's what I'm figuring out, I replied, dribbling the ball thoughtfully. I don't want revenge, but I also don't want to pretend everything's normal. After 3 weeks of intensive planning, therapy, and reflection, I finally felt ready to reveal my news to my family. Rather than making a spectacle, I decided to invite them to dinner at an upscale but not flashy restaurant, neutral territory where we could talk privately. The night before the dinner, I sat with Ellie in my apartment, finalizing my approach. I'm not going to flaunt it, I explained, but I'm also not going to downplay it or apologize for it. You shouldn't, she agreed. Just be prepared for them to have big reactions. The hardest part will be keeping my emotions in check, I admitted. There's still this part of me that wants their approval even now. That's natural, Ellie said, squeezing my hand. Just remember that your worth isn't determined by their reaction. I nodded, knowing she was right, but still feeling nervous about the confrontation ahead. Wealth had given me financial freedom, but emotional independence would require more than money could buy. That night I wrote in the journal Dr. Landry had suggested I keep. Tomorrow my family learns about my win, I wrote. My goal isn't to hurt them or show them up, but to establish a new dynamic based on mutual respect. If money is what they value, then maybe this is the language they'll finally understand. But I won't let it define me the way they've allowed it to define Ryan. I closed the journal, set it aside, and tried to sleep mentally, rehearsing the conversation to come. For the first time in my life, I would be entering a family gathering from a position of financial power. How they responded and how I handled that response would determine our relationship moving forward. I reserved a private dining room at Gibson's, an upscale steakhouse downtown that my parents loved but rarely visited due to the expense. The setting was intentional, nice enough to signal something important but not so extravagant that it would immediately raise questions. My parents arrived first, confusion evident on their faces despite their attempts at casual conversation. "This is a nice surprise, Jack," my mother said, glancing around at the elegant surroundings. "Is there something special you're celebrating?" In a way, I replied non-committally. "Let's wait for Ryan and Catherine." When my brother and his wife arrived 10 minutes late, Ryan immediately took control of the interaction as usual. "So what's with the mysterious invitation, Jack?" he asked while signaling for the wine list. "Mom thinks you're announcing an engagement or something." He glanced pointedly at my ringless hand. "Nothing like that," I said, maintaining a calm I didn't entirely feel. "I just wanted to have dinner with my family." At Gibson's, Catherine raised an eyebrow. "On a teacher's salary." The waiter saved me from responding by arriving to take our orders. I selected the most expensive steak without flinching at the price, a subtle move not lost on my mother, whose eyes narrowed slightly. Throughout the appetizers and main course, I deflected questions about work and my absence from recent family gatherings. Instead, I asked about their lives, Dad's golf game, Mom's garden club, Ryan, and Catherine's recent vacation. They filled the conversation easily, rarely requiring more than occasional nods from me. As dessert was served, my father finally addressed the elephant in the room. Jack, not that we don't appreciate the dinner, but what's this all about? It's not like you to be so extravagant." The moment had arrived. I took a sip of water, set down my glass, and spoke as casually as I could manage. "Do you remember that lottery ticket I included in your anniversary gift?" My mother's brow furrowed. "The scratch-off, I don't think we've gotten around to checking it yet." "Not that one," I clarified. "I'm talking about the other lottery tickets I bought that same day." Ryan snorted. "Please tell me you didn't waste your paycheck on lottery tickets." Actually, I continued maintaining eye contact with my brother. "I bought 3 tickets. The one I gave you and 2 I kept for myself." I reached into my jacket pocket and withdrew a folded newspaper, clipping about the recent lottery winner in Illinois. I placed it on the table and slid it toward my parents. One of my tickets matched all the numbers. 4 pairs of eyes stared at me in disbelief. "You're joking," my father said flatly. "I'm not." I pulled out my phone and showed them the photo of me at the lottery headquarters, oversized check in hand. I won $134 million. After taxes and choosing the lump sum option, I received just under $49 million 2 weeks ago. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's face paled. Catherine froze with her dessert fork midway to her mouth. Ryan's expression cycled rapidly through disbelief, shock, and something that looked remarkably like envy. You won the lottery," my mother finally stammered. "Our Jack." The possessive pronoun stung more than it should have. I'd been their Jack for years, their disappointing, underachieving Jack. "Yes," I replied simply. "I've spent the past few weeks getting financial and legal advice before making any announcements." "Why didn't you tell us immediately?" my father demanded, a hint of hurt in his voice that surprised me. "I needed time to process it myself," I explained. "It's a lot to take in." "This is incredible," my mother said, reaching across to squeeze my hand. Her eyes shone with what might have been tears. "We're so happy for you, honey." Ryan finally found his voice. "Well, damn, little brother. Talk about dumb luck." His attempt at humor fell flat, the bitterness evident beneath. "So what are you going to do?" Catherine asked, her tone suddenly warm with interest. "Quit teaching. Buy a mansion." "I'm taking a temporary leave from teaching, but plan to return. I've bought a house, nothing extravagant, but in a nice neighborhood. Most of the money is being professionally managed for investments and charitable giving." "Smart." My father nodded approvingly, adopting the tone he usually reserved for Ryan's business decisions. "Very responsible approach." The conversation that followed was surreal. My parents hung on my every word as I explained some of my financial plans. Ryan alternated between forced congratulations and thinly veiled attempts to establish his continued superiority. "Money's great, but it can't buy the relationships I've built in my business." As coffee was served, my mother broached the subject I'd been waiting for. "You know, Jack, this is wonderful timing. Your father and I were just talking about some renovations we'd like to do on the house. Nothing major, just updating the kitchen and bathrooms." I met her gaze steadily. "That sounds like a nice project." She waited for me to offer financial assistance. When I didn't, she continued awkwardly, "The estimates were a bit higher than we expected." "Contractors always charge more than initial quotes," I replied neutrally. "Ryan probably has some good contacts in the industry who could help." The deflection was deliberate. Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. As the evening concluded, I paid the considerable bill without comment. Outside the restaurant, my mother hugged me tightly. "We should have a family meeting soon," she suggested, "to discuss everything." "That sounds fine," I agreed noncommittally. "I'll check my calendar." Ryan pulled me aside while our parents waited for the valet. "So you're a millionaire now," he said, his voice a complex mixture of emotions. "Guess you won't be needing any more hand-me-downs." The reference to his occasional generosity of passing along his old electronics or furniture stung as intended. "I think I'll be okay," I replied calmly. "Look," he lowered his voice, "I've got some really promising investment opportunities I've been putting together. High returns, minimal risk. We should talk soon." "Send the details to my financial advisor," I replied, handing him James's business card. He handles all my investment decisions now. Ryan's face tightened, but he nodded and pocketed the card. Driving home that night, I called Ellie to debrief. It went exactly as expected, I told her. Shock followed by immediate attempts to benefit from it. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "Better than I expected," I replied honestly. Seeing their reactions was illuminating but not particularly satisfying. It just confirmed what I already knew about our dynamic. The next morning brought a flood of messages. My parents called 3 times before I'd finished breakfast. Ryan texted about meeting for lunch to catch up properly. Even Catherine sent an email with links to luxury properties her real estate friend was representing in case you're looking for a vacation home. My aunt and uncle, who hadn't contacted me in months, suddenly called to congratulate me after apparently hearing the news from my parents. By afternoon, distant cousins I barely remembered were sending Facebook friend requests. The pattern was clear and predictable. Dr. Landry had warned me about this exact scenario. Sudden wealth doesn't change people's character, he'd said. It just amplifies who they already are and reveals others' true priorities. As I screened calls and messages, I reflected on how quickly my family's perception of me had shifted. The same people who had dismissed me as the underachieving son were now eager for my attention. The transformation wasn't about newfound respect for me as a person, it was entirely about access to my money. The realization should have hurt more than it did. Instead, it felt like confirmation of something I'd suspected for years but never wanted to acknowledge. My family's love and approval had always been conditional, tied to external markers of success they valued. Now that I had achieved one of those markers, albeit through luck rather than effort, their attention followed predictably. That evening, as Ellie and I discussed the day's developments, I made a decision about how to proceed. I'm not going to cut them off or seek revenge, I told her, but I'm also not going to pretend everything's suddenly perfect between us. "What's your plan?" she asked. "Boundaries," I replied. "Clear, firm boundaries financially and emotionally, and time to see if there's anything real beneath the surface now that the dynamics have shifted." The real test of character, theirs and mine, was just beginning. The weeks following my revelation brought an entirely new family dynamic. My parents, who had previously needed reminding to return my calls, now contacted me daily. These conversations inevitably included casual mentions of expenses or projects they were considering, fishing for offers of financial assistance without directly asking. "The roof is making that noise again," my mother mentioned during one call. "Estimates are astronomical these days." "Home repairs can be expensive," I agreed without offering more. Ryan's approach was more direct. After his third attempt to schedule a lunch meeting, I finally agreed. We met at a downtown restaurant where he arrived with a folder of exclusive investment opportunities that he assured me were only available to my closest connections. "This development project has guaranteed 20% returns," he explained, sliding glossy brochures across the table. "I can get you in, but there's a minimum investment of $2 million. "That's interesting," I replied neutrally. "What's your stake in the project?" Ryan hesitated. "I'm not personally invested yet, but I'm working with the developers closely. They offer finder's fees for bringing in capital. So you'd get a commission?" "If I invested," I clarified. His expression tightened. "It's a standard arrangement, Jack. I'm trying to help you here. Money sitting in bank accounts doesn't grow." "My money isn't sitting in bank accounts," I assured him. "But I'll have my team review these materials." James later confirmed what I suspected: the investment opportunity was significantly overvalued, with projections based on unrealistic market assumptions. The developer had several previous projects that had underperformed substantially. Testing my family's motivations became almost a scientific process. During Sunday dinner, I casually mentioned considering a large donation to my former university to establish a scholarship fund. "That's very generous," my father remarked. "But shouldn't you focus on family first? Charity begins at home, after all." "What kind of scholarship?" my mother asked simultaneously. "For first-generation college students pursuing education degrees," I explained. "About $5 million initially." The conversation that followed was telling. My parents suggested redirecting that money toward family investments, while Ryan pointed out that $5 million would be better used for real estate acquisition. No one asked about why the cause mattered to me, or acknowledged the potential impact on students' lives. In another test, I mentioned looking at vacation properties in Florida. Within hours, Catherine texted me listings from her colleague, who specializes in luxury vacation homes and could offer exclusive access. The most revealing moment came during a family dinner when I deliberately left my phone visible with a fake email draft open discussing a potential 8-figure investment in educational technology. Ryan excused himself to the bathroom but detoured to glance at my phone screen when he thought I wasn't looking. Not all interactions were negative. During a rare moment alone, my father attempted an awkward but seemingly genuine conversation about my future. "Money changes things, Jack," he said, staring into his coffee cup rather than meeting my eyes. "Your mother and I worry about people taking advantage of you. You've always been more trusting than your brother." The concern would have been touching if it hadn't been followed by suggestions about consolidating my assets with their financial advisor, a longtime family friend who had mismanaged their retirement funds years earlier. 3 weeks after my revelation, Ryan requested a private meeting. We met at a quiet bar where he ordered scotch and seemed uncharacteristically nervous. "I owe you an apology," he began, surprising me. "I haven't been the best brother lately. Lately I couldn't help asking." He winced. "Fair enough. For a long time then." Ryan admitted feeling threatened by my sudden financial success. "I've built my identity around being the successful one," he confessed after his second drink. "It's messed up, but seeing you suddenly have more money than I'll ever make, it's been an adjustment." The honesty was refreshing, and for a moment I glimpsed the brother I'd wanted growing up, but the moment passed quickly. "So I've been thinking," he continued, signaling for another round. "You know, I've been looking to expand my business. With the right capital investment, I could double my client base within a year." And there it was, the real purpose of the meeting. The apology was merely prelude to another request for money. "How much are you thinking?" I asked, more curious than offended. $2 million would be ideal," he replied without hesitation. "I'd make you a partner, of course. Silent or active, your choice." "I'll think about it," I said non-committally. He studied my face. "That's what you say to all our investment suggestions. Have you actually considered any of them?" "I consider everything carefully now," I replied truthfully. "It's what wealth management requires." Ryan's expression hardened slightly. "Families should be different. We're not just random investment opportunities." "No," I agreed. "You're not." The conversation ended shortly after, both of us aware of the unspoken tension. I wasn't rejecting him outright, but neither was I giving him the easy access to my finances he clearly expected. My parents' approach evolved as weeks passed without financial assistance materializing. They invited me to their home for a special dinner, just the three of us, a rare occurrence before my lottery win. The evening began pleasantly enough with my mother preparing my favorite childhood meals. The atmosphere was warm but tinged with anticipation, like actors waiting for a cue. After dessert, my father cleared his throat. "Jack, we've been thinking a lot about family lately, about mistakes we might have made along the way." My mother nodded, reaching for my hand across the table. "We may not have always shown it properly, but we're so proud of the man you've become." The words I'd longed to hear for decades finally came, prompted not by recognition of my character or achievements, but by my bank account balance. "We know things haven't always been equal between you and Ryan," my father continued. "We probably favored him in ways we didn't realize at the time." "It wasn't intentional," my mother added quickly. "Ryan was just so demanding of attention. You were always our quiet, self-sufficient one." I listened without interrupting, noting how their revised family history painted their favoritism as almost a compliment to my independence, rather than the neglect it had often felt like. Eventually, my father reached the purpose of the evening. "We've been thinking about our retirement. The market hasn't been kind to our investments, and medical costs keep rising." "Dad's knee replacement isn't fully covered by insurance," my mother interjected, "and we've been postponing some necessary home repairs." They weren't directly asking for money, not yet, but the implication hung heavy in the air. "That sounds stressful," I acknowledged. Have you spoken with a financial advisor about restructuring your retirement accounts? They exchanged glances clearly, hoping for a more direct offer of assistance. When none came, my father shifted tactics. We've also been thinking about family trips, he said brightly. Perhaps renting a large house somewhere tropical where everyone could gather. You, us, Ryan, and Catherine. That could be nice sometime, I replied neutrally. The evening ended with warm hugs, but palpable disappointment. As I drove home, I reflected on how money had altered our family dynamic, but not fundamentally changed it. The same patterns persisted: expectations, conditional approval, subtle manipulations, just with new financial dimensions. Dr. Landry had warned me this would be the hardest phase: seeing clearly, without becoming cynical, setting boundaries, without burning bridges. The goal isn't punishment, he'd reminded me. It's establishing healthy relationships based on mutual respect. That night I updated my journal with observations from the evening and my evolving thoughts about family wealth and authenticity. The lottery hadn't created our family's dysfunction. It had merely illuminated patterns that had always existed beneath the surface. The real question now was whether those patterns could change, or if money would remain the primary lens through which my family viewed me. And perhaps more importantly, whether I could finally find peace regardless of their answer. 6 months after winning the lottery, my life had transformed in ways both expected and surprising. The initial shock had faded, replaced by a new normal that incorporated wealth without being defined by it. I'd returned to teaching, finding renewed purpose in my classroom. My students knew something had changed. The new car in the teacher's parking lot was a giveaway, but respected my privacy. After a brief, honest explanation, I came into some money and am grateful to still be doing what I love. My relationship with Ellie deepened through the challenges. She remained the same compassionate, grounded person she'd always been, never once asking for extravagant gifts or lifestyle changes. When I surprised her with a modest but beautiful engagement ring, her tearful yes had nothing to do with my bank account. Trevor remained my loyal confidant, accepting only one gift: help with his mother's medical bills when her insurance denied coverage for an experimental treatment. This is what wealth is for, he told me when I insisted. Helping people you care about when systems fail them. The most complex evolution was with my family. After months of maintaining polite but firm boundaries, I invited them to my new home, a comfortable 4-bedroom house in a good neighborhood. Nice, but intentionally not ostentatious. It's smaller than I expected, my mother commented upon arrival, glancing around the living room. It's perfect for what I need, I replied. I'm more excited about what the foundation is doing. I'd established the Wilson Education Foundation with $10 million of my winnings focused on supporting literacy programs and teacher resources in underserved communities. The foundation operated independently, with professional management and minimal public connection to my personal identity. As we sat in my backyard, I finally addressed the elephant in the room. I know things have been awkward since I won the lottery, I began. I think it's time we talk openly about it. My parents exchanged glances while Ryan studied his drink intently. I've noticed patterns in our family that existed long before the money, I continued. My win just highlighted them. What patterns? My father asked defensively. Conditional approval based on financial success, I replied calmly. Different standards for Ryan and me. The expectation that money should flow freely to family, regardless of circumstances. My mother began to protest, but I raised a hand gently. I'm not saying this to assign blame. I just think we need to acknowledge reality if we want to move forward healthily. The conversation that followed was uncomfortable, but necessary. My parents initially denied any favoritism before gradually acknowledging certain tendencies in how they'd treated their sons differently. Ryan admitted feeling pressured to maintain his successful image and resentful of my sudden financial advantage. I've spent hours in therapy unpacking our family dynamics, I shared. One thing I've learned is that money can't fix relationship problems, it usually amplifies them. By the end of the evening, we'd reached an understanding of sorts. I wasn't going to be an open checkbook for family wants, but I would help with genuine needs within reasonable boundaries. More importantly, I wanted relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial expectation. I'm establishing a family education fund, I explained. It will cover college for any future nieces, nephews, or children Ellie and I might have. It's structured as a trust with specific conditions about use. My parents seemed disappointed but nodded understanding. For your retirement concerns, I continued addressing my parents directly. I've arranged for a financial advisor to review your accounts and create a sustainable plan. I'll supplement your medical insurance with a separate health fund for uncovered expenses, but it will be managed professionally, not through direct gifts. The structure was intentional, providing security without enabling dependency or control dynamics. Ryan's situation was more complicated. After several private conversations, I agreed to invest in his business expansion, but through proper channels with contracts, business plans, and accountability measures that any serious investor would require. This isn't personal, I explained when he initially balked at the formal approach. It's about establishing healthy boundaries. I believe in your business potential, but mixing family and finances without structure usually ends badly. He eventually agreed later. Admitting the process forced him to refine his business strategy in ways that benefited him regardless of my investment. Beyond my immediate family, I found purpose in thoughtful philanthropy. The Education Foundation grew to support teacher grants, classroom libraries, and literacy programs across Chicago. I established scholarships at my university for future teachers and funded technology upgrades at my school. These endeavors brought more genuine satisfaction than any luxury purchase could have. I maintained a comfortable but modest lifestyle, investing the bulk of my fortune for long-term security and impact, rather than conspicuous consumption. As the one-year anniversary of my win approached, I reflected on the journey in a final session with Dr. Landry. The money revealed character, mine and others, I concluded. It showed me who valued me for myself and who saw me as a resource to be tapped. "And your family?" he asked. "We're in a better place," I acknowledged. "Not perfect, but more honest. The boundaries I've established have actually improved our relationships. They know what to expect now, and I'm not constantly disappointed by unrealistic hopes for unconditional approval." "What's been the most valuable lesson?" Dr. Landry asked. I considered the question carefully. That worth comes from within, not from external validation or bank balances. I spent years seeking approval that was never going to come in the form I wanted. Winning the lottery could have made that worse, trying to buy love or respect. Instead, it forced me to find those things within myself. That evening, Ellie and I sat on our back porch planning our wedding and discussing future dreams. The lottery win had changed my life circumstances dramatically, but its greatest gift was unexpected. The clarity to see relationships for what they truly were, and the courage to nurture healthy ones while setting boundaries around toxic patterns. I'm thinking about writing a book about the experience, I told Ellie. Not to expose family secrets, but to share what I've learned about wealth, relationships, and finding authentic happiness. "I think that could help a lot of people," she agreed, squeezing my hand. "Your story isn't really about money at all." She was right. The $134 million lottery win wasn't the most valuable thing I'd gained in the past year. The real prize was discovering my own worth, a lesson no amount of money could buy, but that, ironically, took financial wealth to teach me. As I watched the sunset from my backyard, I felt a peace that had nothing to do with my bank balance and everything to do with the journey of self-discovery the past year had prompted. The lottery ticket that had once embarrassed me in front of my family had ultimately given me something far more valuable than millions. It had given me clarity, confidence, and the chance to define success on my own terms. What lesson would you take from my story? Have you ever had to set boundaries with family over money or favoritism? Drop a comment below to share your thoughts. If you found value in my journey, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more stories about life's unexpected turns, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that their worth isn't determined by their bank account or others' approval. Thanks for listening. And remember, sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as disappointments.